they felt that Brexit was really important in order to get the sort of concept of an anti-establishment movement going, and they would later use that for Trump. What was revealed in the investigation into Cambridge Analytica was that it is a weapon. It is a weapon it's considered weapons-grade communications tactics. It's a psychological warfare weapon owned by MI5 and under export control by the British Empire. To my mind, the whole plan was always to crash out, or to attempt to crash out on no deal, because of the think tanks that Cambridge Analytica is connected to. It's connected to the Heritage Foundation, CNP, and via England, the IFT and the IEA. I'll just say this now as well, okay? People say, WTO rules. But do you know what economic sanctions are? Right, what an economic sanction is basically you stop people from being able to trade with other countries. So, going on World Trade Organization rules is what that means is no federal status, right? Which means that you can't have a bilateral agreement. No country in the history of the world has ever done it. Mauritania did it for a short time, and even they couldn't cope. They now have a bilateral agreement with people next to them. We're imposing economic sanctions on ourselves. That's an act of war. You remove every single trade agreement that we've got. That's what we did to Iran to cripple it. Right? Why on earth would you want to do that?
In this episode, we travel the short distance to Nottinghamshire to once again meet up with mind control expert Neil Sanders. Neil holds a MA in Film Studies and has a BA Honours in Psychology and Media Production. He is also a qualified hypnotherapist. Neil has also written a number of books, which are entitled Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own, Volumes 1 and 2, and Now's the Only Thing That's Real, a re-examination into the Manson murders. Neil is currently writing his blogs, which unravel the network of right-wing elites and billionaires who are shaping the political and social landscape via think tanks, media and social engineering, data mining companies, most notably Cambridge Analytica, and election rigging and other nefarious means, which forms the basis of our talk today with Neil. His research and analytic approach to the subject is exceptional and exposes the facts that very few know or realise. But when studied, they form the true picture behind the recent events such as Brexit and the Trump presidential campaign. So here with Neil, we simply let the information he has accumulated flow from him in this explosive talk. There may be times when you want to yell at the screen, but stay with it and buckle up tight, baby. Welcome to Night Planet. Today we're back with a guest we had about a year ago, I think. Neil Sanders. Hello, Neil. Hello.
Hello.
We'll be talking about a lot of the aspects surrounding quite topical things, really. Really met with the links to Cambridge Analytica and the Heritage Foundation and all the players that are involved with that and the network that surrounds it. So I think one of the first questions for viewers is Cambridge Analytica. Who are they? What the basics of that, and go from there.
Okay, well, Cambridge Analytica is a data mining company. Well, essentially, it's a data mining company. So it does psychographics and it advertises itself as a science firm.
Yeah.
Its slogan is data-driven behaviour change. Now, what it basically does, or what it advertises on its website, is that it will micro-target people. It will collect data, and it will use specific advertising techniques that specifically target people in order to change elections. And they were hired. Well, they came into being in 2014. And when a gentleman called Robert Mercer, he's a hedge fund guy from America, and he leans a little bit to the right. He's also got the largest collection of machine guns in the world, apparently.
Wow.
So he's batshit. And Yeah. Anyway, so Robert Mercer is this guy, and he very much decided that he wanted to get involved in the elections. So the first thing that he did was, via Steve Bannon, he got involved with Breitbart, the outlet Breitbart. And these media outlets are important, again, for spreading the same messages that run through Cambridge Analytica. What a lot of people don't know about Breitbart is that Steve Bannon, through a fund called GAI, Steve Bannon used to work for Goldman Sachs, and through a fund called GAI, he funneled a load of money from the Koch brothers and from Robert Mercer into Breitbart. This was, I don't know if this was before or after Andrew Breitbart died. But regardless, since Steve Bannon was involved, Breitbart is essentially run by the Mercers and the Koch brothers. So it's hardly anti-establishment. What they did was they approached this company called SCL. SCL is run by an MI5 spy called Nigel Oates, and SCL was the parent company of Cambridge Analytica, and they were again involved in that sort of thing, manipulation of elections, and they would use either things like honey trap tactics, offering people jobs like that for huge amounts of money from like shell firms in order to be able to discredit them as money grabbing afterwards. Lots of like espionage and blackmail techniques and stuff like that. And they boast on their website that they've been involved successfully in over 100 manipulation of elections across the globe, and they list loads and loads and loads. Recently, they've been involved in getting people elected, like Bolsonaro. They used Cambridge Analytica to get Bolsonaro in Brazil. They unsuccessfully tried to. Well, actually, they were helping Salvini back in 2012, 2013, which is just about the time that he came to massive popularity. He's not done so well this time. He sort of tried to do like a sort of. Like he used the Hitler tactic, essentially. He's trying to sort of like break up the coalition in order to go back in, and it backfired. But they're going to go again with him. They promote Geert Wilders, they promote Alice Waddell, they promote Nigel Farage, they promote Donald Trump, and they promoted Vote Leave and Leave.eu. Now, what they did in regards to the EU referendum, Robert Mercer basically saw this as, and they've discussed this, and Alexander Nix, who's involved in Cambridge Analytica, and Aaron Banks, who financed it to the tune of over 8 million, he's also connected to all these people. All these people have been friends for years. They're all pound tankers, essentially. They work in disaster capitalism, and they make money from chaotic situations. They've already made, I mean, for example, one of the what's his name, is Odie or whatever, I can't remember his actual name, but he made 220 million on the night of the referendum by betting against the pound. This was also helped by the fact that on the night of the referendum, Nigel Farage did an Amschel Rothschild. He shorted the pound. Why he's not been investigated for this, well, is because essentially it's MI5, but we'll get into that in a bit. That's why, again, the investigation into Aaron Banks just wound up yesterday as well. Like, they're not investigating somebody who illegally used an MI5 weapon, which is what Cambridge Analytica is. But I digress. We'll come on to that. So anyway, basically on the night, on the day that the vote came through, Nigel Farage went on television and said, "We've lost. It's Remain. Remain's got it." Now he knew at that point that was a lie. But what happened was that caused a huge shorting of the pound all across the world, because basically people were able to bet against it. It's exactly the same tactic that the Rothschilds used after the Battle of Waterloo. Right? Why did he do that? Because all these mates at Goldman Sachs, AI, Renaissance Technologies, Mercer hedge funds, and that sort of thing. So essentially, he's doing favours for all these people. So you look at, what the whole point was, it was to start an ideological shift. They felt that Brexit was really important in order to get the sort of concept of an anti-establishment movement going, and they would later use that for Trump. Now everyone remembers like the famous things that Trump was saying during the election, drain the swamp.
We are going to Washington, D.C., and we are going to drain the swamp. It is time to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. We're going to drain the swamp of corruption in Washington, D.C. To drain the swamp.
lock her up.
It has become a Republican convention rallying cry. Lock her up. Her being Hillary Clinton.
Lock her up. That's right. That's right. Lock her up. I'm going to tell you what.
Build the wall.
Yeah.
I would say we are going to build a wall, and people would go crazy. Build that wall. 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 Build that wall.
The concept of fighting against the deep state. Cambridge Analytica came up with those slogans in 2014. Right? How did they do it? They used an app. They used a quiz on Facebook. Well, that was one of the less sort of nefarious things that they did. They used this app on Facebook and basically they mined data from you. They did what would be an effective campaign slogan. And originally they were going to go with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, whose Heritage Foundation, which is a think tank in America, which we'll get onto in a bit. He was going to be the candidate in America, and what happened was, and this was borne out by the WikiLeaks dump. The DNC and Hillary Clinton felt that Donald Trump would be an easier target to win because he was a buffoon. Like at the very beginning, his campaign was clownish. It was very circus-like. He was just doing it to get attention. There's a strong suggestion that he actually didn't want to win. He wanted to promote his new Netflix-style television station that he was going to make, which never came to pass because unfortunately he became president. I don't think he wanted to become president. I think Steve Bannon wanted him to become president, and the Heritage Foundation wanted him to become president. He had to audition in front of the Heritage Foundation before they allowed him to take the candidacy of Ted Cruz. That's a fact. It's been reported by the Heritage Foundation. So anyway, this is the point. So they thought that it would be better and easier to beat, so they paid illegally to run pro-Trump adverts in Republican newspapers. It's illegal. Hillary Clinton did that, which is totally illegal, and it backfired spectacularly because Robert Mercer and the Heritage Foundation went, hang on, we're getting millions and millions of pounds of free publicity. It's not the candidate that's selling it, it's Cambridge Analytica that's selling it. It's these concepts of draining the swamp, this idea of building a wall because things are coming over the border, this idea of fighting against a mysterious deep state, and the concept that they already knew that Hillary Clinton was so very unpopular, right? So a lot of people wanted her locked up. So those 4 campaign slogans, they already existed. They just grafted them onto Donald Trump. Similarly in the Brexit campaign, Dominic Cummings' Take Back Control, I strongly believe that was a Cambridge Analytica slogan.
Take back control. Their slogan helped win Britain's EU referendum for Vote Leave.
Essentially what I call message would be, and it was very simple, had arguably, say 5 elements to it. The first was the theme of take back control. Note the word back, triggering loss aversion, the feeling that something has been lost and we can regain what we've lost, which I think was interesting.
Now this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for us to take back control of this country. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah!
So what did they do? So basically, as well as using sort of apps and stuff like that to sort of see what would be an effective slogan, what they also did was they stole huge amounts of data. They just stole it, okay, and they shifted it over to Canada with a company called Aggregate IQ, which is why the investigation eventually collapsed, because essentially all the data was moved to Aggregate IQ. Aggregate IQ is definitely Cambridge Analytica. It used to be listed as their Canadian branch. The telephone number to Aggregate IQ is still listed under Cambridge Analytica. Robert Mercer owns the IP address. You know, it's the same company basically. They've also got one in Israel called Black Q as well, which we'll come on to in a bit as well. But so they stole all this data. And they used market targeting, which is essentially finding out what you like, finding out what you don't like, or finding out what you hate, finding out what presses your buttons and what makes you tick. And they would personally create adverts or stories or memes that appealed specifically to you and specifically wound you up. They were also creating a whole swathe of stories that sort of went along with this concept. Have you ever heard the story that that 13-year-old girl got raped in Sweden and the guy got away with it? Never happened. That was a Cambridge Analytica creation. They admitted it. Did you hear about the Pope supporting Trump? Never happened. Cambridge Analytica story. Did you hear about Hillary Clinton having the cannibalism disease, Kuru? Cambridge Analytica invention, admitted. Did you hear about Hillary Clinton personally providing ISIS with weapons? Again, Cambridge Analytica creation. Did you hear about Germany acquiescing to child law marriages because of the influx of Muslims? Cambridge Analytica creation. Again, all of these stories that were shared through Breitbart, Daily Caller, InfoWars, Drudge Report, all the things, these things, who just rebel media, which just so happens to be owned by Robert Mercer and the Koch brothers.
Right.
Like Ben Shapiro is financed by the Wilkes brothers, who are a fracking magnate. Okay, so they're pushing big business, anti-environmentalism, and fracking. So if you like Ben Shapiro and you like you're anti-fracking, you're in trouble there. He used to be financed by the Koch brothers, but then basically he went off and to do his own show, and then now he's financed by the Wilkes brothers. Everyone who's on Rebel Media is financed by the Koch brothers, the Rosenwalds, and the Mercers. So that's Tommy Robinson, Laura Loomer, Lawrence Southern, Tommy Loren, all of the Brittany Pegburn, all of those people. They're all financed by the elites. Dave Rubin is financed by the Koch brothers through George Mason University. Turning Point UK, Turning Point USA are financed by the Koch brothers. Again, none of this is hidden. They admit it. You just have to actually go and look at it. Miley Yiannopoulos is financed by the Mercers and to an extent the Koch brothers. It's the same people over and over again. Everybody in that alt-right sphere that just happen to sort of pop up. Richard Spencer is financed by the Regnery family. The Regnery family also helped with the campaign to elect Trump. They put out books by Trump. They're avowed white supremacists. Both the Regnerys and the Mercers want an all-white America. They've spoken about this. This is why we're seeing the proliferation of far-right stuff going on in America, because the people who are backing Trump want this. Stephen Miller, who's the person who was behind the Muslim ban and the separation policy at the border, he went to school with Richard Spencer. They're friends, they're good friends. Stephen Miller and Richard Spencer, with Daniel Kessler, arranged the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally. You know, the one with the tiki torches and stuff like that? Guess where they did it? Trump Tower. Guess who was there? Nigel Farage. Just a coincidence, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. So this is the point, it's about this proliferation of subtle, or not even so subtle, nationalism. Now Cambridge Analytica specifically targeted EDL, National Action, National Front, remnants of sort of combat 18 offshoots and stuff like that, and promoted it. And this isn't the first time. You know, the far right is often used by intelligence agencies. You know why? Because they have a really, really strict guideline of what you can and what you can't believe. And you know, if you understand what you can and what you can't believe, you're really easy to control. And there's a special branch that have had a long history of utilising far-right groups in order to create chaos. Also, if you look at Gladio, that was the same thing. You get the same thing that's happening at the minute, right? Okay, it's basically, you know, it's far-right proliferating violence and blaming it on anti-fascists, which is exactly like the Milan bombing, which is actually like, you know, this is a tried and tested tactic that we use again and again and again. So Cambridge Analytica, essentially, it's financed by, Steve Bannon's involved with it, it's connected to Marconi Defence, it's connected to the Pentagon, it's connected, these are board members, by the people who are on its board, it's connected to members of the Queen's Privy Council, it's connected to a lot of far-right lords, and it's connected to the British Psychological Warfare Office. What was revealed in the investigation into Cambridge Analytica was that it is a weapon. It is a weapon of, it's considered weapons-grade communications tactics. It's a psychological warfare weapon owned by MI5 and under export control by the British government. Now, you know, recently we sold a load of weapons to Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, and there was that big hoo-ha in it that basically, how do we know that these aren't going to go into the hands of terrorists, blah, 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 blah. Theresa May famously said that the UK has the highest standard of export control in the world. Which means that basically, in order to use Cambridge Analytica for the Vote Leave and Leave.eu campaigns, including the lies of 350 million to the UK, including the lies that Turkey was going to try and join, including all of these lies, which we'll get into in a minute, that was an MI5 operation. Right? It's very, very clear. If they're allowed to use their weapon, then members of the government signed off on it. Members of the intelligence agencies signed off of it.
Okay.
It can't be an anti-establishment vote. It just simply can't. But what they did was they played on people's disenfranchisement. They played on people's fears. Some were created, some were hyped up. And they played on people's disgruntlement with the system, which is completely justified, absolutely 100% justified. And they promised you that they would get you out of that system. And actually what they're doing is it's a lie, it's a bait and switch. To my mind, the whole plan was always to crash out, or to attempt to crash out on no deal. Because of the think tanks that Cambridge Analytica is connected to. It's connected to the Heritage Foundation, CNP, and via England, the IFT and the IEA. Institute for Free Trade and Influence for Economic something, I forget, it's in my blog. Okay. But anyway, what these are is, they want to privatise everything. They want an asset strip. They want to get rid of the NHS. They want to lower the quality of food in England by getting out of European standards and moving on to FDA rules, which is such delights as, don't have to tell you if there's carcinogens in food. In a punnet of 300 grams of mushrooms, you can have up to 20 live maggots. That's FDA rules. Okay. There's absolutely, you know, chlorinated chicken, hormone growth in beef is the least of your problems. There's all these other appalling things where they put in, like, you know, everyone's worried about, say, aspartame and, you know, things like that, quite rightly so. You want to see what is in American food in comparison to English food, and everyone keeps saying, oh, you know, the English did do this problems with it was horse meat, blah blah blah. And yeah. I don't know whether you understand the concept of worse, right? Okay, just because something's bad, it doesn't mean it can't get worse, right? Okay, you know, one broken leg is bad, 2 broken legs is worse. It's dead straightforward. Like so that's the whole point. Like, this is why they're tanking the pound. If you look, basically, the people, the hedge funds, there was about 6 hedge funds that backed the Vote Leave, and every single one of them has made a bet that England will go out on no deal and that the pound will tank. Right. There were 8 major donors, independent donors. Every single one of them is a pound tanker. They make their money by betting against the pound, right? The amount of put options, or it came out yesterday in Byline Times, that was being bet against. So this is the amount of money that was put on that would be paid back out if we crash out on no deal and it's really bad. 8 billion. 8 billion from hedge funds has been put aside on the assumption that England will basically crash out. That is what they wanted. These are the very same people that finance Vote Leave and Leave.eu. Okay, that was another thing as well. What they did, Cambridge Analytica essentially helped both of them illegally. But Vote Leave was the official government one, which was supposed to be like the classy one, although they lied and basically said that Turkey wanted to join, that the 350 million for the NHS, and they grossly misrepresented figures and stuff like that. And then there was Leave.eu, which was Aaron Banks and the other guy whose name escapes my mind at the minute. But anyway, and they were the more irreverent one. They were the one that put out complete lies that they knew were lies, Muslim invasion stuff, rising Sharia law in Europe. They were the ones that were targeting the far right as well via their sort of mail shots and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just appalling. And people were saying that basically, like, oh, I can't be persuaded by this. It's like, yes, of course you can. This is advertising. This is how marketing works. It's even more effective if you don't know what it is that you're looking for. As I say, the majority of all these people are all financed by the Koch brothers and all financed by the Mercers. All these alt-right outlets of media. I've got a list somewhere, basically, but let's have a look. I've got them here. They're all, here we go. So, Breitbart, The Daily Caller, WND, Turning Point USA, Rebel Media, Red Ice Radio, Project Veritas, The Rubin Report, The Washington Free Beacon, PragerU, Gatestone Media, Stephen Crowder, Candice Owens, Milo Yiannopoulos, Charlie Kirk, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, Dinesh D'Souza, Laura Loomer, Lauren Southern, Tommy Robinson, James O'Keefe, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, Richard Spencer. They're all in the pocket of the Koch brothers, and I can prove it on an Etch-a-Sketch.
Right.
Like, it's not again. It's admitted they receive money to promote certain stories. They're financed. Their programs are financed. Like PragerU's Dennis Prager, who's Heritage Foundation, and the Wilkes brothers. Gatestone Media is Nina Rosenwald, who is the heiress to the Sears catalogue. They're the institute that make all the videos that go out as well, showing Sharia law and when they do all the caravan and stuff like that. Those doctored videos, they're all from Gatestone Media. They also basically use an arm of Gatestone Media to promote Wilders and Salvini and Le Pen and Viktor Orban and Nigel Farage and now more so Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg as well. So, what have they got? These guys got to get out of it. Well, Daniel Hannan, Michael Gove, Dominic Raab, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, they're all involved with the IEA and the IFT, and these are Heritage Foundation offshoots. How long has this all been going on for? Right, okay. This has been going on since the 80s. The whole point of the Heritage Foundation produces this policy document every single year called the Mandate for Leadership. And they don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, they will give this policy document to you and expect to follow it. Otherwise they will remove all their financing and lobbying and cause problems for you. And they're also connected to Wayne Lapierre of the NRA, for example, who's a CNP member and Heritage Foundation member. So they've got the gun lobby. All the oil and petrochemicals, coke industries, their heritage and that. So they've got that. Jerry Falwell, Billy Graham, and all the evangelical preachers, so the religious right, they're also CNP and Heritage Foundation. So this is this enormous swathe of people who've got incredible influence or potential for influence over particularly Republican but also Democratic candidates. For example, they actually introduced Obamacare. And they introduced PWRA, which was the Clinton administration just hacking away at welfare, just removing huge amounts of people from being able to get food stamps and welfare. And basically what this did was caused a massive rise in poverty in America, because as I say, this is what it's about, the disaster capitalists. That's what the Heritage Foundation, the IEA and the IFT want to do. They want to come in and sweep up and privatise flailing government industries and also basically buy up industries that won't be able to cope because of the trade barriers. I'll just say this now as well, okay? People say, WTO rules. Right, do you know what economic sanctions are? You know, if we go to war with somebody, like at the minute we've got economic sanctions against Iran and some against Russia. Right, what an economic sanction is basically you stop people from being able to trade with other countries. So, going on World Trade Organization rules is what that means is no favoured status, right? Which means that you can't have a bilateral agreement. No country in the history of the world has ever done it. Mauritania did it for a short time, and even they couldn't cope. They now have a bilateral agreement with people next to them. We're imposing economic sanctions on ourselves. That's an act of war. You remove every single trade agreement that we've got. That's what we did to Iran to cripple it. Right? Why on earth would you want to do that? Right? This concept of a no deal or World Trade Organization deal doesn't exist. What it means is you have no deals with anybody. And everyone's saying, oh, well then we'll make one. Do you know how long it takes to do a trade deal on average? About 7 years.
Right.
You know, if you're absolutely. You know what the prima facie rule of the World Trade Organization is that basically there's no favoured nation, which means that people are complaining that we're beholden in this trade deal with the EU to 27 other countries. There's 165 voting countries in the World Trade Organization, and every single one of them has to agree before you can make a single trade deal. Yes, but it's a mess, isn't it? You know who's going to clear up from that? Hedge fund owners and disaster capitalists. People like Somerset Capital, which is Jacob Rees-Mogg's firm that he's moved into Ireland so he can continue to trade with the EU. Nigel Farage made sure that he's got a German passport and for his kids as well, so he can still continue to enjoy the EU. But yeah, sorry. So all of these people, Daniel Hannan and Michael Gove, Dominic Raab, Boris Johnson, all the arch Brexiteers, they're all in these think tanks. These think tanks are under the guise of the Heritage Foundation, and that's the job. That's why Boris Johnson is basically risking. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he basically just ignores it and crashes out on no deal and risks going to prison, making himself a martyr. Because I don't think he will actually go to prison for it. But yeah, so when so I'm bipping about a bit here, but so when this all came to light, that Cambridge Analytica was illegally using this data, the police accidentally got the date wrong on the warrant. So they allowed Cambridge Analytica to know that we're going to come and raid your offices in a week's time. Now in that
Get ready.
in that week's time, they were photographed and put on Twitter, loading all of their equipment into boxes and taking away in vans. So when the police arrived a week later, empty office. That's called a cover-up. Why is it a cover-up? Well, because it's an MI5 weapon. That's why Aaron Banks, the investigation into Aaron Banks, and just collapsed. It's really, really